Okay, I'm turning on record, and we're going to get going here. Okay, I'm having a wonderful chat. I think we're having our usual problems with connections and stuff with French pianist Audrey Abela. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
Yeah, Audrey. I mean, if you do with the French accent, it would be Audrey Abela. But yes,
Audrey Abela. I'll
there
try.
you
Uh,
go.
okay, thank you. You're so patient with this Yankee. Anyway, wonderful conversation we're going to have about French music. Odd. We're talking about Audrey Abela's 2021 Audradec record recording. And I'll put all that information up at Performing Arts Review and how to get at the CD. By the way, it is a beautifully produced package.
I have to say, Audradec is a, for those who don't know about it, Audradec is a wonderful label on so many levels for young artists, because they're peer reviewed. They choose their artists from their roster of artists. So you send a demo, and then they send this demo to all the people who have already recorded with them, and
Wow.
then we decide whether it's a good project and if we like it. And then all the team is very, very nice, super professional, and it's like a big family. It's a really wonderful label. So
That is fabulous, and I'm glad you gave all of us, because most of my people are the college faculty, people producing
they're
CDs.
really wonderful label to work with, and they're
Fabulous.
growing, and they do all sorts of, they do classical, but they do
They do
also
jazz.
jazz and a few other things. And they expanding right now, doing a lot of projects. So
But
really
what I
wonderful.
wanted to compliment you and they about is just the beautiful. I'm looking at it right now. It's just a beautifully designed packaging. It's really gorgeous, the way it's put together. And also, I love your true confessions, if you will. You speak to us quite directly about moving to the States, and marrying and having a child, but also about being French, about getting, one never loses touch. But what I see in your writing and also in this CD is this, you're interested in making sure you're still French, something like that. After all those years in this country, which
Exactly.
is quite overwhelming on levels good, bad, and ugly. Okay, uh, um, Audrey, let's talk about the music that you've chosen for this recording, and it's quite a deliberate choice. And I'm going to ask you some questions a little bit later on about it. But giving us all of us listeners, this is obviously an all French music CD, en suite. It's called, in case I forgot to mention that, produced again in 2021, Audrey Deck Records, so that I can just make sure they get a good plug. Beautifully produced, gorgeous. The photographs, everything, but also the sound quality.
Yeah.
Very, very
The sound engineer and their piano at their studio is beautiful. It's a beautiful piano too, so that helps always.
yeah, always and wonderful. But I love this the methodology of the programming you put together. Couperin, Rameau, to give us a good solid basis in Baroque French and Louis XIV and all that good stuff, that idea, that character, and then you make quite a dramatic, and it's not so because you know what I'm talking about. The four, the Ravel is obviously connected to Couperin and so on, but to Claude Debussy, the Suite Bergamasque, and Maurice Ravel's Le Tombeau de Couperin, and all these years, I told you off camera, okay, I'm going to humiliate myself, all these years about the Maurice Ravel, and I'm speaking kind of as an orchestra nerd, I guess, in terms of my approach to this music. I'm speaking of the Ravel, the Tombeau de Couperin. I was at the death of Couperin. I didn't understand at all. You're going to tell us about this, but I
Yeah.
also didn't understand the most important secrets that everybody knows but me
No,
uh,
not everybody. Maybe
about these
pianist,
movies.
just because it's on the piano score. I'm sure it's not on the orchestra score. That's why.
But the truth is that it speaks volumes to the French, which you will tell. Remember we chatted a little bit about this, and I keep thinking of Française, Have I got his name right? You know who I mean, the French 20th century composer. Did I get his name
Oh,
right?
Jean Français. Jean Français. We don't say the X at
Francais,
the end.
Francais, thank you. Yeah, Francais, thank you. Jean Francais. So jolly, so
Yep.
charming, so very French, so Parisian, so sophisticated. And now I'm going to go hunting for deep subtext because I think that's what I'm finally understanding about French music. Okay. Let's do a little bit of an overview about who you are. Um,
Okay.
French pianist Audrey Abela. You got me all hung up on pronouncing
Perfect.
your first
You
name.
got it. You
Uh,
got it.
okay. And I'm just going to kind of run through it very quickly, but you did your musical studies in France. I remember Boulogne as a student
Yep.
at
Yes.
the conservatory there. Uh, I moved to New York to study at Manhattan School of Music. You now hold Bachelor of Music and Music degree and Master of Music degrees from Juilliard, I presume. Yeah.
Yep.
And then
For men. Yeah.
subsequently, you were offered a 5-year tuition. That's pretty damn good, if I may say so. Brava, to complete your
It's the only
doctorate.
way for it to happen. So too expensive
Well,
otherwise.
and so
But
you
yeah,
are finishing. You're finishing up, if I understand properly, your Doctor of Musical Arts, or is it already done now?
it's
Is it?
already finished. I made sure I finished before my daughter arrived. So I was
Ah,
cramming up until almost delivery to make sure I was done. But so yes, I'm finished. I've been finished for 3 years now.
now
In
was
my
that okay? Good. So that's your first daughter, and now you have a second on the way. If I hope I'm not
a boy on the way. Yes.
a boy on the way very soon. So I hope I'm not
Yeah.
spoiling things for you or for anyone else.
But yes, I did my doctorate at City College after that, City University of New York, CUNY.
Yeah. Okay. But that's wonderful. This complete tuition to complete your
Yeah.
Doctor of Musical Arts degree. Studying with Ursula Opens, Thomas
Yep.
Sauer at CUNY Graduate Center. You're in the process of complete. I guess you have completed your dissertation
Completed. I'm no more students. So yeah, no more, no more. Yeah.
because you mentioned the 350 pages somewhere.
Yeah. That's all
Done.
done, all finished.
It's
Thank
done.
goodness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. And then also you're very. I find this really, and you know the names that you of people you studied with Menachem Pressler, Paul Badura Skoda, Robert McDonald, John O'Connor. I mean, hey, you made a good choice coming to the States, it sounds like to me. Um, and you've been recipient of several awards, but you also are founder of Opus One Music. And I'm going to ask you a little bit later, just kind of give me an overview, but it speaks to me about your passion, as you tell it, to teach. Yeah?
Yeah, so the past, I would say, decade, as a student, I started teaching, and then I ended up with about 40 private students
Nice.
in about 5 years ago, which was way too much. So that's when I decided to start the school with two friends of mine, pianists. Um, I asked them to join me, and then because after I couldn't take any more than 40, but was getting daily requests for new students that I couldn't take on. So
Yeah.
then all the new people would go to my two friends. That was in 2018 that I started this school. So it was just three of us at the beginning, and just piano. And then over the past 4 years, we grew a lot in New York City. So now we have about 120 clients and about 20 faculty members, and
Nice.
it's piano, violin, cello, and voice. So we have, and it's New York City based. So I do on top of the piano, I have to do a lot of administration right now just to keep things going. But it's been a great project, and I'm very proud of it. So.
And I'm glad you're young because I'm now getting old and I'm thinking, where do you find the energy for that? First of all, having babies, let alone getting your doctorate degree, let alone running a training school, if you will, for young kids.
um,
So more power
well,
to you.
thank you.
And you don't seem too ruffled, but perhaps you're hiding the wrinkles somewhere. I don't know. Uh, tell me a little bit, and all of us, because it is kind of interest to all of us who have had our own lives in music. This a little bit about your youth, as a young French woman, a young girl studying in Boulogne, and so on. Give me what that feel was like, And
Um, yeah, I mean, I think part of this CD is sort of a tribute to my French training and the teachers I had in France.
yeah,
That even though I may have spent at this point more of my life in the States than in France, those years that you learn piano and those teachers that you have as a kid just make such a strong impression of you that despite whatever you do, it doesn't go away. So
you mentioned in your program notes your very first, I think, very first
right,
teacher.
my very first piano teacher was one of those, and I think whatever he taught me just even though I heard so many opposite advice from so many other teachers, whatever he told me, and I tried to like forget some things he told me, it just stays there no matter, no matter what, it just stays in you. It's like your parents, you can't just, that teacher, Olivier Casa, which I mentioned in the program notes, was that. And then there's another very important teacher I had there, Hortense Cartier-Bresson. Later in life, I had her more as a teenager. They're both very different, but both very French in their own way, I think. Whatever that means. I think
I,
maybe
I'm glad you said that because we're going to find out tonight, whatever that
um,
means.
Olivier is French in his approach to technique in a way, compare like technical, and then Hortense in her approach to musicality, I think she's very French. So I can explain more if you want now or later about what I
Uh,
mean about that. But
I'm,
I
I'm going
think
to
both
say
of them.
I'm going to segue you into that because what I'm about to say is, despite your worries about becoming too assimilated into American culture, uh, which you obviously enjoy happily, for all of its problems, it's still a wonderful place to live. You've discovered that, that your aesthetic is, of course, French, and
Right.
if I'm what I'm trying to get at is your doctoral dissertation. Everything is about who am I, what is my French thing. Yeah, it's not like you've lost it. You just want to make sure what it is. Am I getting that close?
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, growing up, those two teachers were really my two strongest influence in France. Growing up and learning how to be a pianist. And then I moved here when I was 19, and then I met all these other people and completely different approaches to music, to piano, to teaching, to playing. And it was great to have all of it. I think it takes time. At first you try to reject one and then embrace the other, and then little by little you just put it all together and take the best out of everything, I think.
Okay, and I'm thinking of a quote. Let me find it here. Um, uh, this affinity for French music and pianists, quote, transparent,
Yes.
clear, articulated, and pearly texture. Whatever that means. What does that mean? Pearly texture. I can almost see
yeah,
the
so
keyboard being pearly, but
that's a word that's, I forget, it's my dissertation's right here, but that was first they call it jeu perlé. That was first used, I forgot who coined that term, jeu perlé, but it's, if you can envision what it means, pearly, but basically if you want to be very literal, it's a little bit, it's a technical term in the sense that it's more of a finger touch than an arm touch in terms of technique. So
oh,
that you with your with and that it's this slight, um, also French pianos from the early 1900s were much light, like the Pleyels and all that.
mhm.
Everything is a little bit much lighter than what you would have in Russia, and I think the typical French pianists tend to have this more gentle and back then very fast, light touch, like je perle. I don't know if that makes sense in English. It definitely does in French, but pearly, like little
Well,
like
it
pearls.
it, def-
Yeah,
it definitely makes sense in terms of what I hear on this CD, and we
yeah,
touched on that. Something about just I don't know, as you said, pearly, whatever that means, but just you play the music. There is no Russian, if you will, affectation. There's no Germanic pounding. I hope everybody will forgive me out there,
Yeah,
but you know what
those
I
are
mean. So
all. I know those are all like cliche things, but they are true. In terms of style, like the French are light, and then the Russian are strong, and then the German. So yeah, I think there is some truth to this, which is what I'm talking about in my dissertation. But
and
yeah,
I'm speaking of Marguerite Long's
yeah,
description of French pianism, which is also in your program notes, as per the earlier quote, lucid, precise, slender. Wow. It just never came into my head, and all of a sudden I'm seeing every French musician or artist or painter I've ever known or seen or read about, and that's exactly correct. Lucid, highly intelligent, of course. You French are world renowned for being so highly intelligent. I'm serious. Precise and
yeah,
slender, and that word slender also describes this whatever that technique. Well, as you mentioned, and thank you for that. It really made sense to me, but I had never thought of it before. Finger technique, if
a
you
little
will.
bit more fingering than what you would have in other type of piano schools, like German and
Mm,
American, which is more from the arm and whole body. Like a lot of the French music is more about finger articulation. Yeah,
that's
which
that is just
well,
huge.
Olivier had taught me, and it has bad things about it, but somehow I can't like get it away from me. That that's how, and it works for French music, so it doesn't work for other things, but it works for this, I think.
Well, once again, thanks for giving me quite a lesson and quite a revelation. Because again, you know how it's a big world. There's all kinds of music coming at us all from all directions, from all
I
cultures.
know. Mhm.
And today I had the great pleasure of being able to focus on French repertoire and the things you say about it. And as we said, uh, from the fingers as opposed to from the arms, it makes perfect sense to me in terms of technique.
Yeah,
This subtle difference, this lean, clean
yeah,
uh, articulation. By the way, beautiful articulation throughout the CD. It's wonderful. I hear everything beautifully without any sort of over emotionality or
that's the the finger aspect is the technical aspect, I think, of the French style, and then the second part is what you're saying in terms of emotion and the way to express the music is a little bit. It's a little bit like refrained, like there's not going to be an outpour of rubato or an outpour of sentimentality or everything is within the confine of what but it's there. It's just I think it's in the quote of Marguerite Long somewhere too that I put in there. She says, let me see, I have it
By the way, look
here.
at that CD, everybody, and open three compartment creature. I love the little hole there for the program notes. That little square
Yeah.
thing. It's so perfect. Anyway,
Yeah, she says at the end of that quote that I gave, and it does not give it into any of the playing style in terms of power, profundity, and inner emotion. Like the inner emotion is there, but it's just not maybe expressed in an obvious way, which I think is typical of French culture in a way.
yeah, yeah.
When my parents visit here, they're always surprised at how people in the elevator would be, oh, hey, how are you? Like, how are you doing? And like start striking a conversation in depth right away, as opposed to in French, you just keep your distance a little bit more, I think.
It
If
must
that
have
makes
been the Vikings, because you know what how Scandinavians apparently tend to be a rather private and quiet
yeah.
folk. I'm just I'm hitting the walls here on this, but it's very very interesting, and
Yeah.
how cultures develop over centuries and centuries, uh, and so on. The flamboyant cultures, if you will, let's
Yeah,
call us
that's a
Americans,
good word. Exactly. Yep.
and then the subtle and discreet cultures, let's call that French. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. You got the good words. Perfect.
Let's see. What else do I want to know? Well, I asked you a little bit of, and it makes tremendous sense the way you have organized this program, and as you mentioned a little earlier, your own taste. Why bother otherwise? Um, and by the way, I'm very interested in French Baroque performance technique and embellishment, so completely different from other countries
Right.
during the Baroque period and so on. So that's also very interesting and very
Mhm.
French. The subtle embellishments that are so unique to French, to Couperin, help, I forgot his name already. You know who I mean?
Rameau
Oh,
and
come on.
Couperin.
Couperin, I'm going to get this straight because he's my favorite. Rameau, of course.
Well, yeah.
By the way, I stole the piano score to Les Indes Galants. We'll talk
Oh yeah.
about it. So
Yeah.
I'm very very familiar with this the Sauvage uh,
Right. Mhm.
piece and so on. So anyway, uh, but there is this. Did it was it a matter of 60 minutes? You know what I mean? The time you have on a CD, or because we have you use two Baroque composers of French
Yeah.
Baroque period, and then jump right to Debussy. It doesn't matter. It works beautifully, and we know the Ravel connection to the Couperin.
Yeah.
So give me a little idea. Did you have to just say, I just can't do that? Were there other
Um.
composers? I think it's Saint-Saëns or something.
They so the timing was supposed to be 50, 60 minutes, and as I mentioned, I knew the Ravel was going to be the centerpiece for me. And then after that, I worked around it in terms of what I liked, and I wanted to do some French Baroque because the Ravel was a tribute to French Baroque music. Um, so I picked my favorite pieces from Couperin and Rameau, and then the Debussy was made sense with the Ravel in terms of time periods, and was also a tribute to French Baroque music. So that's really how the choice was made. I forgot what else did you just ask me? Did you just ask me
I don't
something else?
remember either, but I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thought that was something else. I thought of when you asked the question. I wanted to say about the
Something
Debussy.
about that gap between Couperin uh,
Oh,
and and
uh,
Debussy.
in the chronological gap, you mean in terms of time?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that didn't bother me in a sense that I did see the connection and the line
Mhm.
in the French style for
And
all of them,
yeah,
regardless of when it was written.
yeah,
And I definitely saw the correlation and how they all fit within that French style.
yeah, of course.
Uh,
Yeah. So my
yeah,
question was not meant to be hostile.
yeah.
I was just kind of curious, and also I'm going to use another quote here. You call this CD a quintessential French bouquet, and you have just described why. It is your bouquet, your doctoral bouquet,
Right.
to all of us. I figure you're. Let's see what I've got here. Well, because we have such a huge. This is what always intrigues me about choices musicians make, because you have only so many minutes to fill a CD, and I think you have given us a quintessential bouquet of your interests.
Yeah.
How's that? I'm sure you have
Exactly. Yeah.
interest. I'm sure you have interest in late 19th century, even French repertoire, but this is perfect, and with all the connections we've discussed. So I think we can lay that one to rest. Um, and I guess what I was curious about. Now let's start. Now let's kind of dig in a little bit. I think I've answered all of this, or asked you all of the dumb questions. We talked about the influence of your teachers. Uh, I was so amazed in the Debussy again. This could be me being an idiot, but you
Oh, don't.
mentioned the poet Verlaine.
Yes.
Uh, Now, I'm sure everybody but me knows this connection with the Debussy, and that just kind of gave me an entirely different understanding of the piece somehow. So thank you again for brilliant program notes that helped me even a lot. Um,
Good. That's
and
always
also
good.
and also poets and French. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? The French are so poetic. And also I think of Paris all the time, something kind of calm, cool, and collected. Go
Uh-huh.
figure. I'm just an American here. Um, Now let me give me a second. I'm looking at my notes I took, and then I want to really get down to the piece. If I miss anything here, this is fine. We're going to talk a lot about the Tombeau de Couperin. I'm very very interested in what you have spoken to earlier, and I'm going to have to speak to it more. And we talked about trial. Okay, ready. Oh, by
Ready?
the way, I am very interested in the difference in embellishment of now we're starting. Now we're getting into the meat of it. Let's talk about the two French Baroque pieces because the difference in embellishment between Rameau and Couperin is quite astonishing. Because Rameau, he's in full court gear and he's entertaining Louis the something or other.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's all of that. Couperin, of course, is using the same kind of, what I'm trying to say about
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Baroque embellishment
absolutely.
and the style.
I'm by
It's
no
unique.
means what's the word? Baroque specialist or performance practice specialist. I have not studied that in depth at all. So whatever I do on the CD is sort of from listening to many different things
Uh
and
huh.
my own tastes. I don't pretend that whatever I'm doing in terms of embellishment is anything that should be done or that is correct or that is correct performance practice. But in the for Couperin, I felt like a lot of it he actually wrote in for us already.
Yes.
So that makes it a little bit easier. And what was fun to do was play around with registers a lot
Yeah. You
in
mentioned
there,
in Napoleon Union.
especially because
Yeah.
two of the pieces that are on it are pieces that were written for two manuals. So they're a little bit tricky to play. If you play as written,
Uh huh.
your hands are always crossing over. So what I ended up doing is on the repeats I would play around with the octaves, which made sense to me to do,
Sure.
and it's fun and it makes a difference. So that was for the Couperin. And for the Rameau, I think I was a little more conservative in whatever I did ended up choosing. Um, but yeah, they both. I think Couperin is very what's the right word? A lot of fiorituras. A lot of it's very ornamented, I guess. More so than the Rameau. It seemed like to me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Of
Um,
course, it makes perfect sense. Of course, and the only reason that I was a little bit curious is because Rameau would be far more ornamented.
yeah,
He was everything was and it's that French style, Baroque style of ornamentation that is just so complex and so Parisian. You know what I mean? In other words, French repertoire is French repertoire. There's nothing. It ain't German. Those aren't German embellishments. Those aren't Lutheran
I
embellishments,
mean,
if you
in the
will.
in the Appel des Oiseaux, it's just you can really hear the birds with all those ornaments
Yes.
that yeah, you
Yeah.
can really. It's very very clear. So it's
So just to keep people in touch with where we are again, Couperin, 1668, 1733, just to give everybody kind of an idea of the period in history, in French history, and so on. Le tic-toc choc, or les
perfect.
maillotins. Oh boy, am I in trouble. Uh,
Yeah,
les barricades mystérieuses, which
perfect.
I, okay, thank you. I'm not trying to boast, by the way. I'm mortified.
Well, you were doing really well with the French accent.
And then Le Dodo. And of course, I first went to that and thought, the love of a dumb bird? What? And of course,
No,
it's
berceau is like a bed for children.
a cradle.
A cradle. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
See?
Cradle. Yeah.
In other words, uh, okay, I'll take full responsibility for being a dumb Yankee. You know what I'm trying to say, which is that we just assume certain things, or at least I do. And it's taken me, how old am I? 74 to have you come into my life and help me get a little clearer. Okay. Cupid in the cradle. Now we're
Exactly.
talking jest. This has these people are having fun. Cooper is having fun, and I never thought of him as being a particularly playful person for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason. Um,
Yeah, I think a lot of these titles are they're mysterious. A lot of them we don't really know what
Inside
it's
jokes,
jokes
maybe
or something. Yeah,
even.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And here's what I have to say that has to speak to your uh, French playing, I hope. Speaking of le dodo, just as an example, what I'm seeing in my notes is simplicity itself in your playing sounds wonderful on modern piano. And by the way, that really is something you did not compromise. You were playing these works on piano. You know what I mean? As opposed to trying to be all whatever, staccatissimo and plucking the. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it just makes no sense. So you played these early Baroque works uh, 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 on a modern instrument without reservation, if I may say so.
Yeah, I mean that's
Mm.
a tough question, and I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but yeah, that was my approach for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the
Yeah.
correct approach. You either play it on piano or you play it on harpsichord.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course it's different. It's all different. But this simplicity of your playing, in other words, you in a way kind of my ears heard a sort of a totally fresh look at these Baroque pieces precisely because you didn't try to imitate the harpsichord in
Yeah.
style and performance. And I think that was really especially intelligent on your part.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very
Uh,
much.
the now we're in Rameau again, 1683, 1764. So Ravel lived a little bit longer. I mean,
Yeah.
excuse me, Rameau lived a little bit
Yeah.
longer. Sorry. Le rappel des oiseaux, the birds recalled.
Yeah.
And of course, that's very idiosyncratic in terms of trying to put it into English. But and again, here what my notes are is again we're in Rameau, the second of the three pieces you chose. Is it the second or first?
It's the first.
It's the
The
first. Sorry,
rappel is the first.
Le
Yeah.
Rappel is the first of the Rameau. Sorry, I'm getting a little confused here. And as you mentioned, what I immediately and in my notes I go, wow, this reminds me of the Respighi, the birds. You know, in that, sure enough, I wonder how how whether Respighi himself might have
Yeah.
heard this piece. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that piece is, the Couperin pieces you couldn't guess the titles, but definitely that piece you could guess the title if you didn't know it, it's very very clear what he's trying to do.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful, which makes perfect sense also. Descriptive music. Les Sauvages, as I've mentioned, from Les Anges Galants.
Mhm.
My I went crazy for that opera for years and years and years. No idea why now. I never would have been able to
I
conduct it.
forget. I know I'm not sure anymore. Do you know which one came first? Was it the harpsichord version or the opera?
I would guess it's the opera, but I don't know. Can't answer
Oh,
that. That's
I
interesting.
I I don't know either actually. Which
But
one came first?
that tune is
Yeah.
irresistible, and the
Yes,
whole
it is.
those who have seen various opera productions of the work, and it's a beautiful dance movement, kind of fun. I think I saw Opera Lyon do it, on whatever on video some
I
years
think
ago.
I heard a recording of a pianist record. I forget who it was. Maybe was it Alexandre Tarot? I forget. But there's a French pianist who recorded Les Sauvages, and I think he hired some
Drum,
percussion to go
something
along with it. I
exactly.
kind of wish I did that too.
And that's lovely. Very very that baroque simple rhythmic thing
Yeah,
and a tenor drum or something. It's just
yeah.
exactly from the opera, that whole idea. But I love the style of your playing, as I mentioned, because a not that I should not be able to hear, but I hear all the inner lines clearly, everything very clearly in terms of your playing your finger technique as opposed to your arm technique. How's that? Um,
Thank you.
let's see.
All those compliments make me very happy because I was going for all of these things. So it's
Okay,
good.
good.
Thank you.
And the embellishments are all beautifully in there without any affectation. And again, somehow it's almost oxymoronic because Rameau was all over the place in
Yeah.
terms of affectation, but that was my impression. Okay, this one's going to be terrible, in my pronunciation. So I'm going to say it in English: the simpletons of Sologne. Is there is there
That's
any history? Is there any history to that town? And are they all crazy?
um not that I'm aware of, but I have to say that there is one typo in the CD that I noticed after it was done. It's actually Lenier de Sologne. Like this says Lenier de Sologne, which means
uh,
it's only one of them, but the actual
uh,
title is Lenier de Sologne, so it's multiple Nier de Sologne. And I have no idea how to translate Nier in English. Do you
that's
do you
why I
know?
left it alone. I left it alone. That's why I went to the English. What I saw was the simpletons of Sologne.
Yeah, so it's somebody
Sologne,
who
I should say.
pretends to be like in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. What do you call the idiot one? What is there's one that's
Goofy or something. Yeah, one of those. One of those
so
dwarfs.
it, it's somebody who is supposed to be not so smart, but in the end actually is and pretends not to be so smart in order to get whatever he wants, which I think in this piece is represented by so there is sort of variations. There's the
Yep.
theme and then first variation and then the left hand gets more and more ornamented to finish. Like the left hand is just so I think that's how it's shown. So the theme is bum 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 bum, which seems very simple, but
Simple.
then everything that else that's going on in the brain is by the left hand. So that's Nier, but I don't know about Sologne. I don't know what's up with that.
Is it a
That
town?
is, yeah, it's a
does
town, I think. Yeah.
does it exist? And I keep
But I
pronouncing it in
don't
the
know.
Italian way, Sologna. So forgive me, Sologna, I should say.
Yeah.
But my question, it's a teensy weensy question for you because of what I heard.
Yeah.
So I want to ask it. Um, because here I see that I make a note about not using that you use no pedal, of course, right? Uh,
Yeah, I think
but I
close
thought I
to
was hearing maybe pedal earlier. I'm not being fussy. I'm just kind of
no, no, no.
curious.
I think I use in that one in particular. I use a dash of pedal here and there,
Mm.
but definitely didn't make a conscious effort not to use pedal. I think there might be some here and there, but perhaps for most of that piece, it didn't call for it. So maybe there is less
Uh-huh.
in that piece than in others.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
But it's definitely not a statement of no pedal.
Okay,
I think
good.
there
And
must be a little bit here and there, especially in the last variation.
yeah.
Um,
Well, so let's make sure that I'm clear and you're clear, which is that this is not a. I am not asking a question, being a moron about use of pedal in Baroque repertoire. I mean, you know, we all we all know better
yeah,
in performance practice. But what I was trying to say was in that third, I heard less pedal. How's
less
that?
pedal. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and I
that's
just
probably
wondered.
right, just because of the texture of the music
Yeah,
in
yeah,
general.
and
I
to
think
loop.
maybe I heard that one being a little more crisp than the
And
others.
also to compliment you to use pedal because you have chosen to use piano is absolutely perfect. Like Les Sauvages. I'm sure you used pedal abundantly in Les Sauvages and
Yeah,
stuff, and that's
yeah,
exactly right. It ain't Baroque performance practice on a harpsichord, duh.
right, right,
It's an interpretation of this wonderful work with a
right.
modernist. So that I just wanted to say. Okay, now we get into the test stuff.
Yeah.
The Baroque bouquet was quite delightful. Then you decide you're going to choose two of the most important works in the French repertoire of the early 20th century, Claude Debussy. Again, just to give years, because I love to put people in context. Hopefully, it reminds us of the
Yeah.
historical conquest and so on. Claude Debussy, 1862 to 1918. So we got toward the end of World War One, but did not live to see the end of World War One. Suite Bergamasque from 1905. So this piece is from the grand days, of Paris and France, or whatever Second Republic or whatever it was, all that good stuff at the turn of the 20th century that we all have vivid ideas about and imagery of Paris and France at the time. Um, this is really very interesting interpretive territory. How and that's a huge compliment because I'm trying to dish it back at you to say, tell me about how, as a French woman, you have chosen to work through this wonderful piece, including the movement Clair de Lune that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Just your whole approach is so unique. Or is it? It's just very French. So
Yeah, I
tell.
mean that it's if you listen to that piece, Claire de Lune in particular, but even the whole Suite Bergamas, there's so many recordings of it, and there's such a wide range of interpretation, you know.
Sure.
So it's hard to find your place in there, but I do think, like we've talked about earlier in the interview, my general approach, I think it's I guess as a person and as a musician is towards simplicity, and I think that's hopefully that's what comes out in the city. And I think Claire de Lune maybe sometimes tends to be played overly sentimental, and I think I was trying not to go for that or for something a little more inwards. And also because of the sentimentality, I think a lot of time Claire de Lune, I think, is supposed to be a sarabande with the accent on the second beat, and so often I feel like the rhythmic aspects of that piece is lost because of so much rubato. So I was trying to, I don't know if it comes out or not, but to give a sense of the pulse that's a little more in line with all the Baroque suites and the dances that Debussy was going for, than the romantic aspects of the piece.
Okay,
Is that
gotcha. Here's what I said. Now remember, what I do is I spend the whole day, okay, of the
mhm.
interview. That's the only way I can do it because there are so many other distractions. I got a little distracted today, as you know, with with another situation at the Music Academy. But just to look at Claire de Lune for a moment, here's what I said. So what I do is I listen, I type. I'm a good typist, so I listen and type, and then later I go back and go, what did I say here? Uh, Claire de Lune, that movement. She's immediately much more reflective in her interpretation. Bam! I got that one. um, Nothing overdone, just cleanly stated. That's about how things can tend to be a little mushly overdone and over romanticized. Um, and in every detail, no theatrics or drama, just lush pianism. Hello, French pianism. Um, no drama in the moving stuff. Love that. I put in parentheses. Nice articulation, so clean in the higher bits, and then help. Where am I? Help in the higher bits. Okay, beautifully fragile
Thank
without.
you. This is makes me very happy. Thank you. It's everything I was going for. So.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad I got I heard that. And then again, I'm going to have to do my research later after the fact and look at I love the poetry of Verlaine, but I was dumb to have missed this important
No.
aspect of these pieces. No, 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 no. It's true. So Bergamasque, the passe-pied. I hope I got that one right. Pass foot. I mean, it's a dance step. That little movement. And here's what I have to say, and then I want you to tell me a little bit about it. I say she hears everything. All the little bits are crystal clear. The inflections, the subtleties, all there in a completely unaffected manner of playing. Go.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I think the two words that you wrote that speak to me that was going forward inflection for that piece, like the phrasing of the melody. I think I worked hard on that, and it took me a long time to get it right. And I'm still not. It's hard to listen back to the CD, so I've only listened back to it once, maybe, or and in the past year, I'm still not quite happy with some of the phrasing of my right hand, actually. But that was definitely one. So I'm glad you liked the inflections, but because that was one thing I was really working on. And unaffected is the other, those two words really spoke to me. That piece sounded the past piece challenging, was challenging a little bit, also finding the right tempo. And I don't know that I got the result that I wanted for that piece, but I also wide range of how slow and fast it could be. I think I ended up playing it on the fast side, which does good for the lightness of it.
Hmm.
But maybe I think I'm missing some of the inflections that I wanted to do because it's on the fast side on the right hand. I'm not sure. But from my recollection of when I listened back to the CD, that was maybe one piece I wasn't super pleased with on the CD. But
And I'll be clearer when I write the review.
yeah.
But I remember now that you mention it, throughout the CD, two pieces, either in the Debussy or in the Ravel, two movements. One was faster than I was expecting it to be, and it worked perfectly.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
Well, again, because it just floated off the fingers.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there was another movement, and I'll find it when I get to sitting down and writing the review, that was slower than I was expecting it to be. So, I mean,
Okay.
brava for, tossing the salad rather well. And
Yeah.
what else? I've got another one for you here. Come on, where is it? Where is it? It's hard to find your notes here. I should have underlined these differently. I'll find it later. But so far, we're both in agreement that this is a very unique and wonderful and very French album. So here, here. Now
Thank
let's
you.
talk Ravel. 1875 to, and this always blows my brains out that he made it to almost the beginning of World War II.
I know.
1875 to 1937. Wow. And we're looking at Le Tombeau de Couperin, composed 1914, 1917. And here's where I checked out as an orchestra conductor, I guess, in my being prepared. And we're going to talk about it because I find it, and you are very clear in the program notes about the references to these friends who were killed in World War One. And this just was a huge revelation to me. So thank you again and again and again. Um, Dedicated to the men Ravel knew in the war. And was Ravel an ambulance driver? I'm not quite sure that
Yes,
he
he
was.
was.
Yeah,
I think exactly that. Ambulance, or yeah, I think that's where he was.
something. Yeah, that's what I
Yep.
remember. Just like the American writer Ernest Hemingway,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
and to essentially see all of this nightmare, if
From
you will, from a neutral position,
yeah.
if you will. So just dramatic experience. Um, let's start a little bit with. Let's just go through it because this is really one the masterpiece of masterpieces. I think
It
for
is.
for all the reasons we've talked about and that you have made very clear is why you really focused on this piece. The prelude. Here's what I have, and then I want you to talk about. What are we? Five movements, I think.
Six.
Six. Six.
Yeah.
So movement number one, prelude, and I think people certainly in our profession have a good overview of this piece. Uh, but here it is. First movement, nice brisk pace, very exciting at this tempo, beautifully played.
I thought that might be the one that you thought was faster than
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
it makes it all less mushy. You know, it makes it
Yeah.
all flow perfectly when you
That's
pick up the
definitely
tempo.
purposeful, and I do think it works. And so I don't know if you know, but Marguerite Long and Ravel had a very close relationship, and Marguerite Long is the one who premiered that piece, and she actually, unfortunately, never recorded it, but she was sort of the champion of the Tombeau de Couperin. And there's so many recollections of her and Ravel talking about her playing that piece,
Mm-hmm.
and it in every review, everything, everybody said how fast she played this piece, and she was a very fast player herself in general. But she played that, and Ravel always said that that's how he wanted it, which I think guided me a little bit in choosing that tempo. But I do think it works. And I did play this piece for Hortense Cartier-Bresson, my French piano teacher,
Yeah.
a few weeks before I recorded. And I remember playing it probably a little bit slower than what it is on the recording, and she was like, "Oh, it's too grandpa-like. It has to be, you know." And she made me like go for it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that really works." And then so on the recording, I played, I think, particularly fast, but I do think it works
Yeah,
that
and
that
it's
way.
also it's interesting about how easily we can all misunderstand prelude.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
example, I mean prelude. I mean my whole being says slower, contemplate, all that from Chopin or something. And so the big surprise is when somebody sits down and really
And
thinks
then
stuff
two finger
through.
moving. Yeah.
But that is so that prelude, that performance of the prelude at this faster tempo is just
um.
fabulous, just
And
fabulous.
then a few months later, I played that piece again for somebody. He was like, "Why are you playing it so fast?" And made me play it completely differently. So everybody has a different.
Sure.
But I do think it works like this. Yeah.
And I want to remind you about Beethoven and Schubert and others who said faster, faster, faster. They're all playing it too slow. Every single one of them said that. It's too
Yeah.
slow. Everything's too slow. So you're in good company playing things a little bit more vigorously. The fugue movement. Interesting. I didn't hear a fugue tune in there at all. Am I the last person in the world to figure that one wrong?
No. So in the orchestral piece, there is no fugue and no toccata, right?
Uh huh.
Is that
I'm,
right?
I'm,
In the
I'm,
orchestra, so
I'm,
it's just the preludes.
that's
Uh,
right.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So the fugue is often even I played that piece on and off for a few years. And for many years, I don't know why there's this tradition of not really playing the fugue. Sometimes I just perform it without the fugue, like recently. And for the longest time, I didn't even learn it. I don't know why. First of all, I didn't love it at first, so I wasn't but then I learned it and really liked it. I ended up liking what is on the CD for it. But for some reason, that fugue is a little odd and often skips. People
But is
sometimes don't even play it, so
But is
it's
there a
often
fugue
skipped.
in there? Help me because I'm afraid I'm losing my mind. There is not a Baroque fugue structure,
No, no,
and
it's
that could be the reason I set you up for this in a way is because that could be why people have dismissed it. It's like
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't get it. We can leave that one out. Something, but it's
exactly. I think it's a little bit what's happening. I don't know why, but it's definitely kind of dismissed as a movement. But it's grown on me, and I do love it now. But yeah, it's a little bit of an odd movement for sure.
to say nothing of the sacrilege of leaving it out.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
serious, serious. Forlin, dedicated to Lieutenant Gabriel Deluc, a painter friend who was killed. This just, tears me apart. It changed the whole meaning of that movement. So, and then
Yeah,
to
it's
and
like
yeah,
Schubert. We always say like smile through tears. Tears through which way is it? It's a little bit the same here
something like that. Yeah.
in some level.
And by the way, you just maybe described the French temperament, smiling through
Yeah,
tears.
yeah, yeah. I don't know which way it is. Tears through smile, smile through tears. But it's yeah. I think that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Rigaudon, dedicated to now this just again I feel like an idiot because I had no idea this movement dedicated to two brothers, Pierre
Yeah.
and Pascal Gaudin, both killed at the same instant by the same shell. I mean it's just cat and we're involved in Ukraine, that horror that's going on now.
I
So I
know.
mean I hope people can understand even more clearly than ever since we are all experiencing this horror of this kind of death. But I've heard this. I have my notes here. I've heard this 100 times and would never have guessed this dedicatory
I mean,
meaning.
how could you? The quality of, I mean, the middle section a little bit is like Ravel
A little more
concerto.
meditative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the opening it doesn't get more jovial than that. So yeah.
And again about the French temperament. I hope I'm not overdoing this whole idea, but I'm kind of
So
excited about this idea of the. And again, I think of Francais, the composer. Um, Everything's kind of charming and jolly and Parisian, and I can see the streetlights and the Tower Eiffel. But There's
But
always something,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
They have
exactly.
been through their own horrors, the French people, for these hundreds of years. So, but wonderful. Do you have how about preparation of rigodon? And I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. I want to say rigodon in my English, but how did you how did you approach how does one approach something that has that kind of horror underneath it, that kind of horrible subtext?
Um, I mean, in the end, it all comes down to what's on the page and what the music say, and I think you just interpret that. So
Mm-hmm.
the first section of the piece is clearly very rhythmical, so that's what I think you do. But then there is this sadness in the middle section of it. That middle section for some reason reminds me always of the second movement of the opening of the Ravel Concerto in G. In the
Mm,
second movement,
mm.
that whole first
Yeah, yeah.
page where it is the piano.
Somehow it makes
Um,
sense that
um,
about that connection.
so I think here the the sadness comes through on some level, but in the end, you just do your best to make what's on the paper come out, I think. Um,
But also, I'm not going to. I promise I'm going to not give you as much trouble as you think I'm trying to give you. Is there something? Come on, you're a French woman. I want to know. Are the French je ne sais quoi? Who cares? The life is good. Pour the wine. Break the bread.
I don't know. I feel like they're more pessimistic or sarcastic on many levels than Americans or other people. They always have to say something clever, or they always have to be smarter, but like without being obviously smarter.
But in a delicate pianistic kind of way, right? With tinkling tones. I mean, I'm thinking of my student days in Paris. Horror as an American student. We were just crucified. Excuse me. We're nearing the end here, and then we'll go back and do a little overview. But let me just speak to the minuet and the
Yeah.
toccata, the last two movements of the piece. Um, and I'm really interested in this now that we've talked over it. You play the minuet very straight, which is
Yeah.
exactly correct.
Yeah, is it? I'm
Oh
not
yes,
also is it the passe-pied from the Debussy and the Menuet, I think, from the Ravel. From my recollection, again, from that one time I listened to the CD, I
yeah.
wasn't super happy. I think maybe with the Menuet. But I'm glad you're saying that. Yeah, I think maybe I had a hard time deciding on a tempo. For a lot of these movements, it was hard to decide on a tempo, and I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe I'm not convinced with the tempo I have on the CD. Um, and also, yeah, it was hard for the minuet to have the dance feel come out of it,
Yeah.
um, while having the it has so many beautiful moments on it that I feel maybe I missed a little bit. I don't know, that don't come through the way I want it.
Okay,
But
ready? Ready? When I said you played it pretty straight, that's a compliment. Secondly, a little further on, I say to myself, these are just my notes to myself, um, because of that kind of straightforward playing, and this is what we've been talking about, maybe a French
yeah,
style of
that's
playing,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
um, it allows the wistfulness to peek through. That's what I
Oh,
wrote down about that movement.
that's very
Okay,
nice.
you'll take that? Okay.
I'll take
And
that.
I love the last couple of bars too. Absolutely magical. And of course
I did.
that's all in the note,
Yeah.
but interpretation is everything. Anyway, magical. Toccata, fabulous.
Ugh.
Was that one of the harder ones? It's a tremendous technique, clarity, phrasing, stunning style, brilliant.
Yeah, the toccata is hard. It is a tour de force for Ravel. I mean, it's really a hard piece to pull off beginning to end cleanly.
Mm,
Especially live. But we're still working on it.
mm. Oh, good.
Yeah.
You're going to heaven based on that remark. I'm still working on it.
I
You know.
probably will till the end of my life.
Okay. What have I forgotten to discuss that you'd like to discuss? Anything at all in terms of the CD, or what's going on in your life? What's happening? What's coming up in the
um,
next 5 years? I'm curious.
this year, so the CD came out in January. I recorded it about exactly a year ago. Actually, what day are we today?
But
Probably exactly a year
hmm
to the day.
yeah,
And then it came out in January. So I had an album release in April. So
this
it's
past
been
or this
for
past April?
sorry.
You mentioned an album that you came out in April? Is that
Album
another
release
album?
concert. Sorry, a concert for this.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, a concert here in New York City for it.
Yeah,
So it's been on and off for the past year working on this program just because it
sure.
was coming out in January, and then there were a few things for it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Following that I had to replay the program. But now I feel after, well, the idea of the CD came about during the pandemic too, so it was a little bit
Oh,
of a pandemic project.
yeah.
And then this year, it's still on because it was coming out this year. But I feel like maybe now it's time to take a break from French music. I've been now I'm ready for some Chopin or Beethoven. I don't know. But yeah, so the the album has been a big part of the past year.
By the way, let me just jump in about you've got that exactly right, which is you've made it very clear you're French. You've made it very clear you've put together a French album, and you are now making it very clear you have a huge, wide repertoire. So, yeah, exactly. You don't want to get, what do you call it, compartmentalized at all. But
No.
it's just a wonderful, wonderful performances of these pieces. Big, these everybody kind of sort of knows everything on this CD,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So that's always a big risk, frankly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Especially, like we said, the Street Bergamask, there's so many recordings with the wides, and people have versions in their head,
hmm
so
hmm
it's hard to compete with that. But
Well, I think
hopefully,
you've done a good service uh, to your Frenchness because if I came away with anything at all, I came away with a much better
good.
understanding
Thank
of the
you.
French temperament. I hope. Okay, French pianist Audrey Abela, many many thanks. I'm going to put all this up at performingartsreview.net. Your 2021 Audrey Records CD en suite. Music by Couperin, Rameau, Debussy, and Ravel. You can't get much more, you know, exciting than that. Just a beautiful performance, and as you have made very clear in your program notes, you're French, and you wanted to have a look at you and your culture and your colleagues in music that are French and how to properly play French repertoire. So I thank you very much for that. It
Thank
it
you very
was
much.
was very exciting. Yeah. Okay, I guess we're done.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Great
Sure.
to speak with you, and I'm glad that a lot of the things that I was going for, you heard. So that makes me very happy. Thank you.
I'm happy too. It means my ears are still working somewhat. Hang on.